So today we are going over, yep. All right. Looking at the review sheet, problems 1 through 3. I hope that we feel comfortable with problems 1 through 3. Plot the points. So I'll just pick the second one, -5, 3. -5, 3. We go over to -5, up 3, and label the point. Because with these here, plot the point and label it, plot the point, either way, you'll still need to label it. Just put the letter with it, and that's all we have to do. For -2 is C. So just plot the point and label it. Even if it doesn't say label it, you'll want to put the label with it. Just A, B, C, whatever it is. And that's it. Any other questions on 1 through 3? Questions on 4 and 5. Find the distance and midpoint between the 2 points. Well, midpoint is our x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So for this one here, we'd have 7/9 plus -9/7 over 2, comma, -13/15 plus 15/13 all over 2. Plug the x values in, plug the y values in, and we have this here. And you can do this in a calculator. So I believe it was 7/9 plus -9/7 over 2. Make sure 7/9 -9/7. Yep. So -16/63. So we just plug it into the calculator. The same thing with the other one. -13/15 plus 15/13 all over 2. 28 over 195. So these here are really just calculator stuff. Questions on how to find the midpoint? Okay. I'm going to erase this here if we're good. Because the other one is distance. Distance is x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And again, this is just calculator work. So x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And at this point here, we can type the whole thing into the calculator just as it is. Second square root parentheses. So here 7/9 minus -9/7 squared plus, was it -15/13? Okay, thank you. 15ths minus 15/13 close parentheses squared. So we'll just type the whole thing in, hit enter, and there it is. If you can give me at least 2 decimal places or 3, either one works. If you're not sure on which one, just give me more. Giving me more digits is never a bad thing. So we can say 2.88 or 2.89. 89's the more correct, Because if we go to 3 or 2 decimal places, 8/9 is technically the more correct one because the digit after it, after the second 8 is a 7, so we would technically round up. But I'll take either, or if you want to give me everything the calculator gave you, I'll take that too. Okay? And if it does give you a radical answer, it said 2 radical 3, I'll take that. If it's the correct answer, I will take it. And if it differs in some way, I had 2 radical 3 as the answer and you gave me a full decimal, I will verify that they are the same. Because as long as they're the same answer, it's still correct. Questions on this here? Find the x and y intercepts. So finding the x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis, which means the y value is 0. Now, for the most part, we would just plug in 0 for y. Rationals are a little bit different. We can treat them a little differently because the only way that I can divide two things and it turned out to be 0 is if what? The numerator is 0. Doesn't matter what the denominator is, the numerator would be 0. So we could set it up as just this here. Now, if we set it up over the x squared plus 4, that's fine. Because our first step would have been to multiply both sides by the bottom of the fraction so that these would simplify out. Cubed. Yes, thank you. We'd have 7x cubed minus 3. But over here, x squared plus 4 times 0 is still 0. So we end up getting back to the same place. Now at this point here, we can solve. So we would add 3 to both sides, telling us that 3 is equal to 7x cubed. Divide both sides by 7, telling us that x cubed is equal to 3/7. Cubed root both sides. This is not a nice number. 3 cubed root of 7/3 is 1.33, approximately. Oh. I knew there was something I was forgetting to do. All right. Any questions on this here? There's no key on the review. I just realized that. I will get that out to you before the end of the day. Okay. Any questions on how we found the x value of the x-intercept, where it crosses the x-axis? So there's only going to be one specific value with cubed roots. Cubed roots are only going to be 1. Now the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, and that's where the x value is 0. So all we need to do is plug 0 in for x. Well, that whole thing is 0. This whole thing is 0. So really what's left? -3/4. And that is the y-intercept. Any questions on those here? Another way to find x and y-intercept is to actually graph them. We can use the graphing calculator, graph them, and see where they cross. Now, if they cross at not nice numbers, we would have to plug it in to find it, but we can still do that here. Any questions on any of this here so far? So like number 7, I could go y equals, say, second square root of 2x plus 3 plus 4 and hit graph. Does it have an x-intercept? No. So there's no spot where I can plug 0 in for y and get a value for x. And we could do that mathematically. 0 is equal to the square root of 2x plus 3 plus 4. Because if I minus 4 from both sides, we get that negative 4 is equal to the square root of 2x plus 3. Well, we can't get a negative number out of a square root, because the square root is asking what number times itself gives us what's inside the radical. Well, it can't be negative, so there is no x-intercept. So for this one here, the x-intercept is none. There is no x-intercept. And that is possible. And it's also possible that we don't have a y-intercept. Because if the entire equation is in the first quadrant, second, third, fourth, and it goes away from both axes, it is possible to have none. Now the y-intercept for this one here is when x is 0. Well, 2 times 0 is that's technically the y-intercept.
Kim Castleman and Haley Shipley get back to the toppers class now.
All right. So for all these here, 6 through 9, to find the x and y intercepts, you're plugging in 0 for x, solving for y. Then plugging in 0 for y, solving for x. And once you do that, then you'll have the x and y intercepts. Now it is possible, especially for radicals, to not have one or both. So one or both could be none. And a good way to check that is, again, graphing it. Because here we see it's going up, so it's never going to cross the x-axis. Any questions on this here? Go good with these here? Find the standard form of the circle from the given equation. Standard form of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared. We can go on and look at number 10. 10 gave us the center and the radius. So it's x minus h. H, k is the value of the center, so it's x minus 7/2 squared plus y minus 3/4 squared is equal to the radius squared. Now we will have to square the 2/5, and 2/5 squared is 4/25. So if they give you the center and the radius, plug it in, and we're done. Questions on number 10? Let's look at number 11. Now, number 11, we have to get it back into standard form. This one's going to be the one using completing the square. Now, when we look at the x squared and y squared, if they have a number in front of them, for circles, they're going to be the same, and we need it to be 1. So the easiest thing we can do is if x squared and y squared both have a number in front of it, is to divide the entire function by said number. 2x squared divided by 2 is going to be x squared. 2y squared divided by 2 is just y squared. Minus 7x divided by 2 is just going to be 7/2 x. Minus 6y divided by 2 is 3y. Plus 13/8 divided by 2. We can just do that in a calculator. 13/8 divided by 2 is 13/16. Now our next step is to kind of reorient this. So we're going to do a few things. One, to move this over here. I'm going to also move the y's together. Also, subtract this from both sides. Because we need the constant term by itself on the other side, and we need the x's and y's together. Because what we're going to end up using is the c is equal to b over 2 squared. We need to make both of these into perfect square trinomials, so we can rewrite them as a single set of parentheses squared. Now for x, our value of b is -7/2 squared. Now the first thing I would do in the calculator, fraction on top, -7/2 over 2, plug it in first, which is -7/4. And at this point we can square it, giving us 49/16. And if I add it to one side, we have to add it to the other. Bless you. Questions on this so far? We'll need to do the exact same thing, bless you, for y. But this time the y value is -3. The b value with y is -3. Can we divide -3 by 2 evenly? No. So we'll leave it as -3/2. Now we can square it, which will give us 9/4. And again, we have to add 9/4 to both sides. Now at this point we factor it, and when we factor it, we'll have our two sets of parentheses squared, and the number that goes inside both of these parentheses is going to be whatever we had inside the parentheses finding c before we squared it. So with x, it was -7/4. With y, it was -3/2. On the calculator, we do need to simplify the other side. -13/16 plus 49/16 plus 9/4 is what we wanted, yes? Enter. And we get 9/2. 6. 36/16. Any questions on any of this here? Now we don't have to do anything from this here. We just needed to get this equation set up. So this here is the final answer. Questions on this here? We're not going to look at 12. 12 is not going to show up, but we will look at 13. Now 13 does have one thing, or two things that are nicely done for us. One, x and y squared, x squared and y squared, already have 1 in front of them, so we don't have to do anything with it. And the constant term without a variable, is already on the other side. So those two are nice. The first thing I would do is get the x's by themselves, or just really together, the y's together, and kind of set up so that we can plug in our values of c. Now again, in both cases, c is b over 2 squared. And we get that b value from the term with the variable to the first power. So with x, it's negative 14. Now negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. And negative 7 squared is 49. And if I add it to one side, we have to add it to the other. And interestingly enough, the b value for y is also negative 14, which will still be negative 7 squared, which is 49. Now for x, the number inside the parentheses, before we squared it was negative 7, so we had x minus 7. And with y, it was also negative 7. So we have x minus 7 squared plus y minus 7 squared is equal to, well, in the calculator we can say negative 90 plus 49 is 8. And that there would be our equation. Questions on this here? Are we ready for the next one? 14 through 16, write the equation slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is our y is equal to mx plus b. And one of the formulas we can use to get to it is our y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1, our point slope form, depending on what we're given. So for number 14, we're given the slope and a point, so I would use point slope form. Because we're going to start with this form, plug in our information, and then get y by itself. So for this here, we can plug in the point 8, 19. So we have y minus 19 is equal to our slope, negative 7/5 times x minus 8. First thing we'll do is multiply through by the negative 7/5, which will give us negative 7/5 x, plus negative and negative makes a plus. And if we multiply these together, we get, go 7 7's 49, 56 fifths. And then to finish off getting y by itself, we would add 19 to both sides. So 56 fifths plus 19 is 151 fifths. And that there's the equation of the line. Any questions on this here? Now, if we look at the next one, 2 point, what we need to do is find the slope first. Then we can use point slope to go from there. So we would do the y values on top, 15 minus 9, over the corresponding x values, which is 9 minus negative 7. And again, at this point here, you can type this all in a calculator. 15 minus 9 over 9 minus negative 7, which is 3/8. Now plugging it into the formula, y minus y1 equals our slope times x minus x1. Now I chose the point 915. We could have also chosen the point -7,9. Either one will get us to the same answer. Now the first thing we can do is distribute the 3/8, which would give us 3/8x. Now we do 3/8 times -9, which is -27/8. Then lastly, we will add 15 to both sides, telling us y is equal to 3/8x is 93/8. And that there is the equation of the line. Any questions on any of this here? Are you good with this here so far? Let's look at the last one. They gave us the slope and a point, so we can use point slope form. Y minus y1 is equal to the slope times x minus x1. Here, the negative and negative makes a plus. We distribute the 9/19, which will give us 9/19 x. And 9/19 times 0 is 0. Minus 17, telling us y is equal to 9/19 x minus 17. Any questions on any of this here? We ready for the next one? For 17 through 18, find the line parallel to the given line and goes through the point 715. So again, for this here, we're mainly going to be using slope point slope form, and then getting y by itself. Now for the first one, they gave us what the slope is. They told us y equals -7/8 x plus 5. The slope for this line is -7/8. And if it's parallel, lines that are parallel have the same slope. So -7/8 would be our slope. And we can use the point 715. Plug 15 in for y is equal to -7/8 times x minus 7. Now at this point here, we would distribute. So we have y minus 15 is equal to -7/8 x. -7/8 times -7. Negative and negative make a positive. 7 times 7 is going to be 49 eighths. And lastly, we can add 15 to both sides, telling us y is equal to negative 7/8 x plus, well, we'll actually have to add those, 49 eighths plus 15 is 169 eighths. And that would be the equation of our new line. Any questions on this here? Let's look at the next one. Now this one here, we can see that the equation is not in y equals form, so we can't just grab the slope. So what we need to do first is to get this in the correct form. So minusing 3x from both sides, which will tell us that 7y is equal to negative 3x plus 5. Then we divide everything by 7, giving us y by itself. And we get this here. And this is helpful because it tells us that the slope of our new line is going to be the same as the slope of this line, which is negative 3/7. Because if the two lines are parallel, the slopes are the same. And now we can do the exact same thing we did on the last one, but this time the slope is negative 3/7. Any questions on this so far? Now again, our first step is to distribute the negative 3/7 across both. Negative 3/7 times x is negative 3/7 x. Negative 3/7 times negative 7 is going to be plus. Is going to be 3. And last but not least, we will add 15 to both sides, telling us y is equal to negative 3/7 x plus 18. Any questions on any of this here so far? We ready for the next two? Perpendicular, we're doing the same thing as parallel, except perpendicular slopes are the opposite reciprocal. So if we look at the slope of 19, the slope for 19 is negative 3/4. So our new slope, since it was negative, is now positive. And we flip it from 3/4 to 4/3. Change the sign and flip it with perpendicular. Change the sign of the slope and flip it. Now this time our point is negative 4/7. So we have y minus 7 is equal to 4/3 times x minus negative 4. Inside the parentheses, we know the negative and negative will make a positive. And then we can distribute the 4/3. 4/3 times x is going to be 4/3 x. 4/3 times 4, we can plug this into a calculator, and it'll give us 16/3. And last but not least, we need to plug in. We need to add 7 to both sides. So we can say 16/3 plus 7 is 37/3. And that is it there. Any questions on this so far? Now, in the next one, we do need to get y by itself first. So we're going to subtract 8x from both sides. And the next thing we'll need to do is divide everything by 7, telling us y is equal to negative 8/7 x plus 9/7. But the only thing we really want from this equation is the slope. Because to create our new line, that's what we need. We need to know what the slope is going to be. Since it's perpendicular, it's the opposite reciprocal. So we change the sign and flip it. So since the slope was negative, our new slope is positive. And since it was 8/7, it's now 7/8. Now our point that it's going through hasn't changed, so we'll still have y minus 7 is equal to 7/8 times x minus negative 4. And again, the negative and negative will make a plus. Now we can distribute the 7/8 through, giving us negative or 7/8 x. And 7/8 times 4 is going to be plus 28/8. I believe that will reduce. 7/8 times 4 is 7/2. So plus 7/2. And lastly, we will add 7 to both sides, telling us y is equal to 7/8 x plus, add 7 to it, 21/2. Any questions on any of this here so far? We good with all this here? We'll finish this on Monday.